about the books that I read for the last 40 years, and today I have my special guest. She's a builder of brain friendly workplaces, dismantling disability narratives, HSP coach, Berkman consultant, former director of HR, and lover of music and movement, no other than Miss Sira Laurel.
Thank you, Daniel. Happy to be here.
Welcome, Miss Sarah. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I miss?
Sure. So I think important to note I'm the founder of North of Normal, which is executive function coaching. And it's a neuro affirming, neuro inclusive design practice. I help highly sensitive and neurodivergent leaders trade self doubt for self mastery so they can confidently create work lives that work on their terms. And my work integrates evidence based assessments and practices, the science of systems thinking, and nervous system literacy to help overall self mastery development. And my mission is to transform the notion of sensitivity from a perceived liability into a leadership asset and to help organizations design for all kinds of brains because the differences that we have are not a deficit. It's actually the direction that we need to go for success.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Miss Sarah. Thank you. Today, let's talk about the role of heightened sensory processing sensitivity of human enterprise. Let's start by defining terms beyond sensitive. In the context of human enterprise, what is the core functional mechanism of SFC or SPS? Is it primarily about deeper cognitive processing, heightened environmental awareness, or emotional empathy?
Yeah, definitely. So, sensory processing sensitivity is the technical term for what is maybe colloquially described these days as the highly sensitive person or highly sensitive people. That terminology, highly sensitive person, came from Dr. Elaine Aron, the primary researcher of the trait of sensory processing sensitivity. And those who are on the high end, right, who have heightened sensory processing sensitivity, that's characterized by a nervous system that deeply processes physical, social, and emotional stimuli. The original, percentage that we thought affected roughly 15 to 20% of the population. We now know from a meta-analysis that took place in 2018 that there's actually roughly 30% of the population that could be considered highly sensitive, around 40% of the human population that would be moderately sensitive, and then the remaining 30% that would be low sensitive. So, again, those on the high end, it involves high empathy, awareness of subtleties. And because of those things, right, the brain is taking in more information consciously, then there is the potential for overwhelm, right, or overstimulation from, the noises, even bright lights or chaotic environments. And so there's a need for processing time for the brain and the nervous system to actually be able to move through, right, and process that incoming sensory input.
The enterprise often rewards extroversion and resilience to high stimulus environments. How does SPS challenge or complement this traditional archetype of a successful leader or innovator?
Yeah. So I think it's really important to recognize that traditional models of leadership came about from mostly the Industrial Revolution, for those of us in the United States, a mechanized, right, view of work, and a that perspective is something that we have been trying to uproot and change for now, I mean, hundreds of years, right, with laws that prevented children from working or prevented adults from working more than 40 hours, requiring employers to provide rest breaks, to even modern day benefits packages like the inclusion of vacation time or wellness days or development. So we continue to make strides towards what actually works for humans, which is an environment of neuropsychological safety where you have a high degree of autonomy. You are able to then be flexible in your day to make it work for the way that it works for you. Um, the more that we can humanize our workplaces, the more that we'll be able to see all humans flourish, including the highly sensitive people. But highly sensitive people are and can be exceptional leaders because of their heightened awareness, because of their deep empathy and strategic, thoughtful approach, right? Not despite these things. It is, I think, an unearned urgency that we are often operating with, that this need supposedly for fast pace and quick decisions isn't actually a need, right? It's a driver that we're used to without asking why, where it's coming from. That there's a fear driven kind of perspective there that has taken hold across industry, that if you don't do it first, right, if you don't do it fast enough, then you won't be first and you'll be left behind. However, I again would question what situations really require the rapid decision making that we assume that we have to make. If you're not in a burning building needing to get out immediately, right? If you're not, say, saving a life, right, and the situation is life or death, then you do actually have the time to process information and to gather a little bit more information through having an additional conversation or research in order to make a higher quality decision. So HSPs, highly sensitive people, are those on the high end. They have natural emotional intelligence, which is essential for creating psychological safety, boosting team morale, that reduces turnover, the strategic and deep decision making. Our brains are wired to process information deeply, so that helps us see the bigger picture, helps us see critical details, which would lead to a well thought out and conscientious decision. Avoiding costly mistakes down the road, right, or seeing an opportunity that somebody else might miss. We have superior listening skills that makes us effective coaches who provide constructive feedback. And we tend to be pretty visionary and creative thinkers, right? We're highly intuitive, and that allows us to see potential issues as well as to develop innovative solutions. These are all qualities, capabilities, skill sets that any organization would want to cultivate.
Miss Sira, let's talk about the HSP as innovator, strategist, and leader. How does the HSP's tendency for the processing and post to check behavior translate into competitive advantage in strategic planning, risk assessment, or product development?
Yeah, absolutely. So our systems are designed, right? We've evolved to take in more sensory information consciously than the other 70% of the population. So that means that we are going to have a wider view, a more comprehensive view of any situation. And what does strategy require but a lot of evidence, right, in order to actually have a high quality decision. Quick decisions that are made with little evidence are not strategic. Strategic decision making requires processing time. And so it is actually it's not accurate, right, to say that they're kind of opposing forces to say we need fast decisions, but we need strategic thinking. Those two don't jibe, right? We need evidence-based decision making. We need adequate processing time in order to have great strategy, in order to account for the possibilities, in order to account for the risks, right? In order to account for the opportunities, in order to account for the threats. So again, highly sensitive people are naturally, right, imbued with this deep processing ability that makes them great strategic thinkers, problem solvers, and business leaders.
What do unique contributions do HSPs make to foresight and a long-term thinking? Are they a better equipped to model complex systems and anticipate secondary consequences?
Yes. Highly sensitive people are highly conscientious.
Hmm.
And again, they have incredible attention to detail. We take in more emotional data as well as the subtleties in social dynamics. Um, so yes, that conscientiousness, that care for outcomes, right? The high concern for outcomes is an attribute of the highly sensitive person, of the highly sensitive brain, that does make for better long-term decision making. That pause to check system is highly applicable, right, in the workplace because we're not rushing into a decision that carries a major consequence. We are thinking, deliberating, acquiring, right, and accruing information from a number of sources, not to be able to necessarily predict all outcomes, right, but to, uh, as best as possible, right, account for what changes might occur down the road, what frictions might occur, right, what to try to identify as many unknowns, right, as possible, right, so that again, every plan will change. We won't be able to predict 100% of what could occur, from a decision, but we can have contingency plans, and we can make sure that we have, a plan B or a plan C when changes occur or when something comes up that nobody could have thought of.
Can you share an example of a product, service, or company culture innovation that likely emerged from a highly sensitive person's ability to detect subtle unmet needs or experiential flaws that the others overlook?
Companies with leadership that prioritize empathy and long-term value, deep user understanding, client understanding, thoughtful collaborative environments often evolve into distinctive high performing cultures and product driven brands. These leadership traits align with the characteristics often associated with highly sensitive people and highly sensitive leaders, again, such as high emotional intelligence and deep processing. So, a customer obsessed and empathetic culture, like a HubSpot or a Zappos, right, where you're delivering happiness, or culture is a product, right, to be refined. Um, a product centric and visionary culture, like Apple under Steve Jobs. Um, the culture was defined by an obsession with design, with user experience and delight, right? So that resulted in products that were not only functional, but also emotionally resonant, like the iPhone. I think of empowered and collaborative cultures. Pixar, practices radical candor, where employees are empowered to provide honest feedback, allowing them to turn ugly babies into beautiful ones
Hmm.
through collaborative, non-judgmental critique of the work. Those are just a few examples. Patagonia would be the last one I would mention, right? It's that built around action, environmental responsibility, right? The culture is driven by a deep commitment to its mission.
Very well said, Ms. Shira. Let's talk about the operationalizing and advantage of environment and roles. The modern open office plan is often an highly sensitive person's kryptonite. What are the highest impact environmental and procedural adaptations of a company can make to unlock HSP talent without sacrificing collaboration?
Yes, and I would say that these environmental conditions will will never sacrifice collaboration. Will never be at the sacrifice of collaboration. It's actually the opposite. Um, and really, what I also like to say is that what's good for the HSP is good for everyone. That a personalized, flexible stimulation environment where you can have in-person collaboration and discussion, lively discussion, but you also have spaces where someone can minimize sensory input. And even just thinking about overall design is that nobody likes a harsh light. Nobody can withstand loud noises forever. And chaotic spaces aren't good for any brain, let alone a highly sensitive brain. So, in optimizing the workspace for the highly sensitive nervous system, you will optimize the workspace for literally everyone and everyone's nervous system, right? Where you're promoting the ability to go from, calm to lively and routine and structure to unstructured. Um, and I think autonomy is the word that comes to mind, right? Is that allowing anyone, right, in the system to operate their internal operating system, and so that they're able to navigate their workday in a way that works for them. People will act as adults, right? If you treat them like adults, and
Mhm.
they will meet with others when they need to meet with them, and they will come to the office right when it matters, and to build relationships, and they'll also take that respite and recharge time just as needed. It's when you restrict the agency, right, of humans that we then start to see the withdrawal and the resistance to imposed ways of working, where somebody might have actually come to the office more frequently if there was the flexibility to choose, right? Because again, humans and adults want flexibility, right? We want autonomy, we crave that. We want to have agency. That is a deeply human need,
Mm.
and so offering that in the system, you would be surprised at how much ownership someone will take on, themselves. Again, when you give them the option and have a kind of semi-structure, right? Yes, have a framework, but allow for freedom in that framework.
Allow that freedom. We like that. Sarah, so for an highly sensitive people leader, what does effective delegation look like? How can they build or teams that complement the depth and action oriented executors without creating dependency or frustration?
Hmm. Yeah, question. I think effective delegation, again, for someone with a highly sensitive nervous system, is is in a lot of ways the same as for anyone's nervous system. But
Yes.
for an HSP, it would mean uh, uh, intentionally assigning tasks that still allow them the flexibility to conserve or preserve their emotional energy, to honor their need for maybe a more calm or structured environment, uh, allowing them again whatever flexibility and agency you can with that task. So even if they have to take on something that for them may be emotionally charged, right, difficult, a critical conversation, whatever it is, that when they get to do it, maybe is up to them, right? So that there is a collaborative process there, right, with that assignment. It definitely looks like, and this is true for anyone, but definitely true for the HSP, is that it looks like setting clear written expectations, making sure that they're paired up with other trusted team members for support, leveraging technology to minimize any, kind of unnecessary friction that would come from, manual processes that, again, like tax us and require more cognitive load. Um, I think I'm going to go back to just autonomy, right? Is that you can assign anything to anybody who you feel is capable of managing that task, and never assume that a highly sensitive person isn't capable of handling a task just because they have a highly sensitive nervous system. We always need to look at someone's knowledge, skills, and abilities, right? What they have shown you, right? Them to be capable of. Um, but then give them that agency, that sense of energy, agency is that I'm assigning this to you, but you can choose, right? Like when you could get this back to me. You're offering clear and structured communication. It's empowerment, right, over micromanagement. So trusting them to, again, do that thing in the way that works for them. Do they need alone time to do that task? Right. Give them the alone time they need to do that task, and let them do that. Right. Aligned delegation. So again, true for anybody, but assigning tasks based on a team member's strengths, right, was going to foster confidence and success and make them more likely to be able to do that task in the future. And the more that someone gets used to a difficult task or a complex task, right, the easier it will become. Which is why it's important to give assignments that help people grow, right, so that they do have the opportunity to develop a skill set, to adapt, right, and learn how to take on challenging tasks.
So, Sira, as a CEO and a coach, what are your short-term and long-term goals?
Oh, my short and long term goals are to live and lead and love in alignment with my nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
I don't blame myself for burning out, but I did ignore a lot of signs that told me that I was heading there. And despite knowing about my sensitive nervous system, I still ignored my own needs, to the point where I had to take a leave of absence from work. And that led me on this path to creating a business and a life around my sensitivity, and leading from alignment as opposed to assimilation, and trying to live as if I had somebody else's nervous system. So yeah, I would say, simply put, short term, long term is to continue to honor those needs, and to help others learn how to lead in alignment with their nervous system, and that there are different ways of working and different ways of leading that are more human and more humane, and that is the future that we want to create for ourselves, for our children, and for the species.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Sarah, and looking forward for more success. And what will be your piece of advice for those people that want to be like you?
Patience, self compassion. We were all making mistakes. We're all unique, but we are all human, right? And we're sharing this human experience together. And so have some self compassion when you do falter, when you fail, when you fall. That
Yes.
is the antidote to failure.
Thank you for that, Miss Sarah. Thank you for that advice. And can you please recommend a book or books that influence your journey?
Absolutely. So what struck me out strongly on this path was the book by Dr. Elaine Aron called The Highly Sensitive Person, and that helped me reframe what had my entire life I had thought of as a disorder or a dysfunction, into an understanding of this trait of sensory processing sensitivity as simply a neutral and alternative survival strategy that the species evolved for a good reason. So highly recommend The Highly Sensitive Person.
Thank you for that recommended book, Miss Sarah. And before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, because my abstract essay is already in sixth season, abstract poetry, and third season, and my book 101 review in sixth season two, comedy 101 in third season, and food 101 in sixth season as well, geography 101, love letters Movie 101 Review, Music 101, fifth season, Science 101, Text 101, fourth season, Trivia 101, Law 101, Mental Health 101, Motivation 101, Entrepreneurship 101, and of course, my Bible Verses 101 on my baby podcast. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Miss Sarah, tell us ultimately why is it the integration of heightened sensitivity not just an accommodation for minority but strategic imperative for the health and innovation capacity of any human enterprise?
Yes, with the understanding that now 1 in 3 people have heightened sensitivity, that is a business imperative, right? When 1/3, up to 1/3 of your employees are highly sensitive, roughly 1 in 5 people, are considered neurodivergent, and that's just under the present definition, that we are leaving out 50% of employees when we design systems that weren't designed with anyone's brain in mind, let alone a highly sensitive or neurodivergent brain. So if you want a high-performing, highly profitable, scalable, and resilient organization, then designing an environment, and a system that where all brains can thrive is the key.
Yes, indeed, the key, people. So, Miss Sarah, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever project that you're doing right now?
Sure. I think the easiest place to find me is on my website, which is www.siralaurel.com. If you do a Google search, you'll see any number of social profiles that you can follow. I'm everywhere.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Sira Laurel because if you support her, for sure, more and more empowering advocacy like this to rise. So, Miss Sira, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
What can people see you soon?